Hey, it's Christian Yordanov. Welcome back to the podcast. Today's topic is one that I think very few people have on their mind, right? And that is the topic of how we are breathing on a day to day basis. And for many, it's becoming more popular, but I still feel like the large majority of people out there are unaware how impactful the way you breathe is on everything. We can use the umbrella term on your longevity and health, but when you hear some of the stuff I'm going to discuss today, it will make a lot more sense. And the basic TLDR spoiler is the way you breathe activates your nervous system in a different way. So, very simply put, if you do an experiment right now, as long as you're in good health and you're not driving and don't have heart issues or whatever, are not prone to fainting or stuff like that, what you can do as an experiment right now is you can take 10 very fast and deep breaths in and out through your mouth. So, this kind of thing. And see what happens. So, this is the easiest way that you can understand how much leverage your breath has over your state, your nervous system state. And what that will do if you do actually try this exercises, it will basically activate your fight or flight nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, right? So what is it, how will you feel that? So you will feel your pulse increasing. If you were to measure your blood pressure, that would increase. If you could measure your adrenaline in the blood, that would increase. So those are some of the more the more palpable things happening. But there's other subtle things that you may not notice, at least at first. So when you activate the fight or flight nervous system, the blood tends to go away from the midsection to the limbs. So the idea is we're gonna fight something, run away using our legs, climb to safety. So it makes sense that those areas of the body are given priority. So what does that mean? It means whatever's in your gut, in that torso area, is probably not going to get um, a lot of resources, and that's basically the digestion is the thing that will begin to basically you're down regulating your digestion, so you can always digest things later. Your immune system can always deal with whatever it needs to deal with later, but for now you need to fight or flee. So if imagine if you can do it in 10 breaths, if you can activate the sympathetic nervous system with 10 breaths like that, imagine not such an extreme scenario, but one where you you're just activating it, 5, 10, 15, 20%. So this is where a lot of people find themselves in the current world. They're breathing in a way that basically overactivates the stress system, and that can contribute to a ton of things, from gut problems to brain fog to sleep problems to anxiety, you name it. I mean, at the end of the day, we know that before even food and water, breath is the most immediate prerequisite for life. So if if we were to create some kind of hierarchy of needs, in actual fact food and water would be preceded by our breathing. That's how important it is. But the problem with a lot of things like this is because we all do it, we think we're doing it right. You think just the body knows instinctively how to do it. The problem is that that just isn't so. So yeah, so at the moment, this week I've been building out my for my Live Longer Formula program. I have a whole section in the program that's all about breathing optimization to improve focus, reduce anxiety and stress, improve sleep. So I've kind of immersed myself into the stuff this week. And I thought I'd record this just to give you a deeper understanding of some of the mechanisms behind how not breathing correctly will actually contribute to diminished longevity, diminished health, and basically it will just work against you until you resolve it. And I'm gonna give you some ideas on what to do, of course. Now, personally, all my life, basically, I was kind of not a mouth breather in normal circumstances, but anytime I exerted myself, so running, sports, soccer, things like that, I always would mouth breathe. Just nobody freaking told me I'm not supposed to do that. So I was really good. I was fast, like sprinting. I was pretty fast. I was always one of the fastest in my class. When it came to like 800-meter running, I would start strong and then everybody would overtake me near the end. So I was always like, why do I suck so much? Why can't I don't have any cardio? And I'd play soccer and I'd gas out all the time. I was good, like technically. I had a knack for soccer and just in general for sports. But my cardio always sucked. So I'm like, what the hell? And then when I started doing Thai boxing later on in life in my 20s, um, I'd still would gas out and I will do more cardio to get fitter for the Thai boxing, which obviously, nowadays I wouldn't do that because it's dumb. But when you're young, you just do a bunch of exertion without giving a damn about what it's actually doing you and aging you and whatever. But I was like, why the hell is my cardio so bad? Like, I mean, it can't be that freaking bad. And then, lo and behold, in 2018, I was listening to all kinds of biohacking podcasts, Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, and I heard a dude called Patrick McKeown from Ireland. And at the time, we were just about to move to Portugal from Ireland with my wife. So I was like, oh, this Irish lad, how's it going by? Let me hear what you have to say. So I was absolutely enamored that 1 hour episode. I listened to him. Absolutely. He blew my mind, this guy. So that was 2018 in the summer. I remember I was in Portugal here. And as soon as I finished that episode, I ran to the pharmacy downstairs where we were living and I picked up some tape with which to tape my mouth at night. And over the next couple of days, wow, I was like, oh my God, is this what it's like to wake up without your mouth being dry and you slept well and you're refreshed? Jesus Christ. So I was like, I bought his couple of his books, immediately started reading it on Kindle, and basically over the next couple of days I just was like, I have to see what this guy's about. I went to his website. I saw he's doing training in breathing, and I went to Ireland. I spent 8 days with him. Basically, we a group of us at his house where the Buteyko clinic is in Ireland near Galway. So we spent 8 days with this guy learning all these ins and outs of breathing. So since then, I'm since September 2018, I'm certified in his method of helping people correct their breathing and optimize their breathing. And he's done a lot of amazing work. This guy, Patrick, he has I don't know how many books now, 12, 13 books. He has a whole other method for sports, Oxygen Advantage, that I'm also involved in at the moment. Just about to get certified in that. Just for it's the same principle. I just thought I might as well because I have all the knowledge prerequisites. It's just a matter of doing a little bit of extra work to get that other certification. So that's more for like sports optimization and stuff like that, and kind of more peak performance. But the Buteyko stuff he teaches, it was for me a game changer, and for some of my clients, it's also been a game changer. And he's helped at this point it's tens of thousands of people. And the reason I'm mentioning this now is because basically all of his resources are out there for free. You can buy his books, you can buy his courses, you can become certified in his methods. But the guy is so awesome that he just gives everything away for free, basically. And that's really respectable. So I always want to kind of support him. And he actually, for my first book on autism, I had a whole a part of a chapter about breathing, because a lot of kids mouth breathe, and that causes special education needs and lowers IQ, and it messes with their development. So he actually read over that section of the book and gave me his input for that. So he's been really he's been really generous with his time. Um, Now he's impossible to reach because he's just so busy, but amazing guy. So go and check out his resources. And basically, so what um what is it all about? What is the problem with many people's breathing right now? So we're talking about breathing too much air. It's as simple as that, right? It's as simple as that. We can call it chronic hyperventilation, but when you say that, people don't think they're chronically hyperventilating, right? It seems like that's a diagnosable condition, but the thing is, overbreathing is so easy to do. Even if you sigh a couple of times an hour, or you yawn once or twice here and there, that can actually be enough, because a lot of people then take a deep breath after that. That can be enough to keep you in a state of mild chronic overbreathing or hyperventilation, right? So what's the problem with that? Well, here's the thing. This is the thing that kind of blew my mind back in the day, when 2018, when I was listening to Patrick. So when you breathe too rapidly or too deeply, carbon dioxide, you're expelling carbon dioxide when you breathe out, obviously. So what happens is you expel too much carbon dioxide, or CO2, and the levels of CO2 in your blood drop. Now, the thing about carbon dioxide is, the sort of mainstream narrative is just a waste byproduct of breathing, and energy production and stuff like that. But here's the thing, and this is where like later on, into some of this may blow your mind if you have some of the health challenges that um we'll discuss later. But so, if carbon dioxide has a lot of beneficial roles in the body, right? But here's the thing: if your carbon dioxide level in the blood drops, then your ability, sorry, or rather not your, but the ability of of oxygen to be released from hemoglobin to the cells is reduced, because a long time ago they found out, a guy called Bohr found that you basically need a certain concentration of carbon dioxide in order for oxygen to be released from hemoglobin. If So the simply here is that, if you breathe more than you should, you have less carbon dioxide in the blood, because you're expelling more every minute. And that, paradoxically, even though you're breathing more, means your tissues and your cells are less well oxygenated. So hopefully that makes sense. Once it clicked for me, I was like, hot diggity. So the thing is, in mild cases of overbreathing, it's difficult to sort of gauge this, because the body is very good at keeping homeostasis, and it will adapt. If you start, let's say today, from tomorrow, to breathe 10% more volume of air per minute, well, your body's gonna adjust. At first you might feel a bit lightheaded and fatigued, and your cognitive function might be reduced, but you will adapt, right? Because the body is able to adapt to these things, right? um but over time, it's gonna cause you health problems, right? It's simple as that. So let's talk about some of the health problems that chronic overbreathing can cause. So this is the part that, if you have a problem with, let's say, blood pressure, or some kind of blood flow, stuff like that, or headaches, or dizziness, stuff like that. Here's the thing. So carbon dioxide, sorry, just before I get into that, if you do the breathing thing where you kind of breathe out, in and out very fast, like, let's say, Wim Hof breathing, which, by the way, terrible fucking idea. uh if you're 40, you trust me, just trust me on this one. don't do it. Just you've no business doing this stuff. Trust me, it's doing you no good. All it does is it raises your adrenaline and but point is if you do that, if you've ever done the Wim Hof breathing, and no offense to anyone there that really loves it, I used to also do it, whatever. Another mainstream sort of fad that's probably doing more damage than actual benefit, but whatever floats people's boat. Usually a lot of people there are fit and young or some combination of those, and they're not feeling the negative effects. But here's the thing: if you ever done Wim Hof breathing or have hyperventilated, you can feel dizzy or sometimes headaches or various kind of weird vertigo type symptoms. Okay, so why does that happen? Well, because everyone is brainwashed right now to think that you have to raise your nitric oxide because that's a vasodilator. But the thing is that carbon dioxide is a potent vasodilator. And if the levels are lowered in the blood, you have vasoconstriction, which means the blood vessels basically tighten, if you can use that term. And that includes in the brain, right? So that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. Um, then you have other stuff. For example, let's see what else. What else? I have a list here. So if you tend to overbreathe, like I said earlier, that can activate the stress response, right? So you have the autonomic nervous system, and it is very sensitive to changes in blood gases. If you hyperventilate or breathe too much, that stimulates the fight or flight system, nervous system, the sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, and that increases stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And they can do other things like they can raise other stress hormones on top of that, right? They can cause other downregulation of metabolism, just lowering of testosterone. I mean, there's like so many. And again, these might be minor increases in the stress hormones, but imagine over 2, 3 decades, more adrenaline, more cortisol than you need. What's that going to cause? I mean, if, as we know, cortisol increases lower testosterone, well, that's one thing. Cortisol can, promote estrogen um, synthesis through, upregulating or activating the aromatase enzyme. Just there's a ton of both of these hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, can increase insulin resistance. They downregulate the immune system, right? So the Wim Hof people that did the Wim Hof breathing in that study, and then they were injected with bacterial toxins, they didn't have any symptoms of illness, not because they were bulletproof and superhuman because of the Wim Hof breathing, but because the adrenaline spike from the Wim Hof breathing actually suppresses the immune system. Because again, like I said earlier, if you're in a fight or flight nervous system state, you don't need to digest right now. You don't need to have a very active immune system right now. Um, what else? Yeah, so we have this now. If you're triggering the fight or flight nervous system, I mean, we, as you know, that can increase anxiety and stress. That can diminish sleep quality. That just it can it even a 5, 10% or 20% worsening in any of these anxiety, stress, sleep quality. Um, you just imagine all, and then we're not talking about 1 week of doing this. We're talking about people if they do chronically hyperventilate, they're like this all their life. I was like this until the age of 32, and some people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, they've been living like this all their life. It's because we seem to have forgotten, or maybe the stresses of the modern world are, you know, predisposing us to because when you're stressed, you're going to breathe faster. So maybe if you're chronically stressed, it's the sort of one feeding into the other, and then you breathe too much, and that feeds back into the stress. So it's really, when you actually sit down and do some of these exercises that slow down your breathing, If you start yawning and sighing and want to take a nap, don't be surprised, because you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system, and that um, basically, you know, stimulates digestion. It, can be beneficial for the immune system. It will relax you. That's why with some folks, doing this before bed, especially, if you're living a stressful life, it can be an absolute life changing thing. Okay, what other things can over breathing cause? So there's an issue called respiratory alkalosis. Now this is where the pH of the blood rises excessively, and that's due to sustained overbreathing. Now the thing is, um, if you do the Wim Hof breathing, and again, I really think Wim Hof is a very nice guy, but just they took his thing and they turned it into this other thing, and it's grown into a monster that is just it's just I don't even want to get into it. I'll probably do another episode on that separately. But I remember in the app he has, or something, YouTube, back in 2018, before we got into this stuff, before we got into the Buteco and the Oxygen Advantage stuff, we were before, months before that, we were into the Wim Hof, all the biohacking stuff, all the stuff that's big now. That was 7 years ago what we were doing, and I remember he's after the breathing round, you take those kind of big escalations and whatever. He was like, feel that your blood becoming more alkaline, as if like this whole alkaline acidity thing, that's an absolute joke. Like, you don't want your blood being excessively alkaline. It just not doing it's not doing you any favors, right? So in severe cases of respiratory alkalosis, there can be symptoms of muscle cramps, tingling in the extremities. Yeah, I've had clients report that. um, Involuntary muscle contractions, and this basically because you have various enzymes and things like that that need a specific pH to work in, that can interfere with normal cellular metabolism when the pH of the blood is. And think about this. Let's pretend that we're not doing the Wim Hof breathing. Let's pretend we're smart like that, and we've avoided that. Um, just a long term minor thing, the 1-2% suboptimal change over 3 decades, 30 years, 40 years. Think about how much it's like. You can think about it. If you have a leak in a bucket, or you have a compounding interest in one direction, it can be beneficial, even of 1%. But if it's a minus 1%, let's say some kind of debt that you have to pay down, that accumulates, um, over decades, that's gonna compound into a lot of debt. So it's like that in the body. If you do a few things here and there, that each on their own improve things by 0.5%, 1%, 2%. Like, imagine, and you sustain those things for decades, that's going to do you a lot of good. But imagine you have a few leaks and holes in the bucket, so the breathing, and then some kind of gut function, eating a food that you're sensitive to every day, 5% here, 1% here, 2% there. Imagine that compounding against you. So this is the kind of stuff we need to address as quickly as possible, because also at the end of this sort of period of addressing it, which could be 2 months, 3 months, whatever, that's all it takes for a habit to become ingrained. At that point, it's no more real work that has to be done. So I see it as a really amazing opportunity to leverage this type of thing. You spend a couple of months, change a habit, go through the initial hump, and then at that point, it's just as easy to do the new thing that as the old thing. It's really this is the kind of stuff that, talking about longevity, if we can identify as many of these things in a person, which is what we do with my clients, um, we can really steer the ship a few degrees that would change the entire trajectory of the person's life and health. Okay. Um, Other things. I mean, just it honestly, this is huge. Like, I mean, that's why Patrick, just this, um, narrow topic. He's created a 25 year career and business empire out of educating people about this, is because it's simple, but there's so many sort of nuances to it in the body, when a simple thing as just breathing a little bit too much air with every inhalation and exhalation, exhaling too much carbon dioxide. That's how leveraged this can be, in both the good and the bad directions. So you have ionized calcium and potassium shift. So changes in blood pH can affect the ionization of minerals like calcium and potassium, and so the reduced ionized calcium can lead to increased neuromuscular excitability, which can cause that tingling and cramping, whilst the disturbed potassium balance can actually impact heart rhythm and muscle function. Over time, these imbalances can stress the cardiovascular system, and when severe, can actually predispose to arrhythmias and other cardiac issues. Then you have other things like, let's see, inflammation and impact on inflammation and oxidative stress. So inadequate oxygen delivery combined with chronic sympathetic activation. So if you have too little carbon dioxide in the blood, or a suboptimal amount, that means not enough oxygen is being delivered to the cells. And if you combine that with chronically activating the fight or flight nervous system, that contributes to systemic inflammation and oxidative stress. And we know that both of these are known to accelerate aging. In my book, How to Actually Live Longer, Volume 1, the three primary drivers of aging and dysfunction, as I've sort of defined them for you there, are stress, inflammation, and oxidative stress. And this is what suboptimal breathing contributes to. And again, it might not be a huge amount of stress, but even a 5% increase, again, multiply that, compound that over decades, and you're in trouble. So we have to really take this stuff seriously. I know it's not the sexiest thing. It's not as sexy as taking supplements and running cool lab tests and poop tests and whatever else, but this is where it's at. These are the fun. It's like I sometimes say, you just have to really dial in the fundamentals and just stay on top of the fundamentals before we even talk about more fancy stuff like methylene blue or whatever other anti-aging therapies and ozone and whatever else, right? You have to dial in the basics, the fundamentals. And what's more fundamental than breathing, right? So we know that inflammation, oxidative stress can contribute to cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disease, diabetes, right? So when you actually think about it, overbreathing increases your disease risk over time, right? It puts a stress on your kidneys. It can increase your blood pressure. It can cause vascular constriction, can stress the heart. Like we already covered, it can increase anxiety. It can contribute to panic disorders. It can contribute to depression. And then, of course, it can have other impacts on, like we said, like sleep, mental performance. It can cause electrolyte imbalances. It can cause exercise intolerance. Like for me, I had straight up all my life, I had exercise intolerance because I didn't know how to breathe. And then when I did the Thai boxing, not one of my freaking coaches ever said, dude, shut your mouth. Shut your mouth. You talk too much. Also, you breathe too much. Somebody should have said it. Nobody said it. And that would have really helped me a lot. Right. So, but anyway, it's never too late. This is the most important thing. It's never too late to begin course correcting, steering the ship in a slightly different direction. And hopefully, this gives you a little bit of an idea how important this is. Like I said, the resources are out there for free. I have this as part of my program. It's a small part of the program, but I'm going to be now that it's almost ready. We're just having some of the videos still being edited as we speak, but once that's deployed, I'm going to definitely be onboarding my clients into the process of beginning and the beautiful thing is that these are exercises are so simple, so easy, they're free, and you can do some of them when you're out for a walk or before bed, while you're in bed, or when you're sitting at your desk. So it's not like, oh, I have to now carve out 30 minutes every day to do this thing. That's the beautiful thing for in terms of implementing breathing optimization and breathing re-education into our daily life. It's so easy, it's so simple, and it's free. But the benefits for what we invest are just staggering, staggering in terms of the time and the effort investment here. So yeah, hopefully this gives you a good idea of what chronic mild overbreathing can cause or contribute to in terms of health. And hopefully this you found this useful, and thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.